delusion, if you will, of getting away with something that often leads people, well, take this a step further. To give you an illustration of how this particular verse in Ecclesiastes impacted me in my life, why it is so meaningful to me. When I was young and in high school, typical American boy, and I ran around with a rough crowd, and we did typical boy things. Now, it seemed like I could never get away with anything. It seemed like Mom always found out what I was up to, and I would get in trouble. And what really frustrated me is that the boys that I ran around with, it seemed like they never got in trouble. But the way this worked out is that them not getting caught, them not getting in trouble, they went beyond in some areas that were hurtful for them, but I was restrained. God saw to it that I got caught, and though I hated it at the time, it was God preserving me and keeping me from really doing some very stupid things. So I think that verse is applicable to where Herod came to. Okay, I got James, and lightning didn't strike me, and the religious Jews like that. I want to curry favor with them, so I'm going to get Peter also. And that will really that will put me in with the Jewish people. Okay, so here's what Herod is intending. Obviously he's intending, I'm going to kill people. So picking up in verse 4 now, Acts chapter 12 and verse 4, after arresting him, this is Herod arresting Peter, he put him in prison, handing him over to be guarded by 4 squads of 4 soldiers each. The term was a quaternion. A quaternion, a Roman quaternion, was a squad of soldiers consisting of 4 men. Okay, so what are we talking about here? 4 squads consisting of 4 soldiers each. Herod committed 16 soldiers to guard Peter. Now think about that. Herod intended to bring him out for public trial after the Passover. I think that there's a little history here involved in this. 16 soldiers. Now, you got Peter. You put him in prison. Not only is he behind bars, but you got 16 men dedicated to guard him. Well, what would we say about that? Herod really didn't want Peter to get away, did he? Now, the history of this. You go back to chapter 5, and you read of an occasion where the Sanhedrin council, and particularly the Sadducees, were grieved with the apostles preaching the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead. Now, the history of the Sadducees, they rejected spirits and the afterlife. And so the apostles were boldly preaching in Jerusalem the fact that Jesus rose from the dead. Sadducees, it grieved them, and they said, we've got to do something about this. We've got to stop this. So they arrested the apostles, and they put them in jail. But you go back in that story in chapter 5, and what you find is that when they were in jail, God sent one of his angels, and he broke them out. And the angel said, you go right back, and you keep on preaching the word that God has sent you to preach. And they did. Now, obviously, Herod was aware of that history, and Herod determined, you might have gotten away from the Sanhedrin council, but you're not going to get away from me. I'm going to make sure that, Peter, you stay in jail. Well, as we're going to see, God had different plans, didn't he? So Herod put him in jail, going to kill him, and he intended to bring him out for public trial after the Passover. So, continuing in verse 5, so Peter was kept in prison. He was kept in prison, but the church was earnestly praying to God for him. You think they were scared? You think the members of the church in Jerusalem were afraid? Man, they got James. They're going to kill Peter. They get us next. What do you think they were praying? Maybe sometimes like us, oh Lord, let Peter out. Oh Lord, get Peter out. Oh Lord, get Peter out. We're praying. Now, I'm mentioning their fears because I think that's going to play a factor, as we'll see, in why God was allowing this to happen. And let's make no mistake, God was allowing this to happen. He was fully aware. Yes?
Prayers are not always honest.
No, prayers are not always honest. So, prayers are something. Do you ever try to fool God in prayer?
Yes.
It doesn't work, but all the time.
Daryl, you're too honest. But think about that. Trying to fool God. But we do it sometimes, don't we? Trying to fool Him. So, Peter was kept in prison. Now, I wanted to ask you a question just for us to ponder a little bit. Wonder who really was doing the keeping here. Now, was Peter kept in prison because Herod put him there and he placed a guard of 16 soldiers to keep him? Who was keeping Peter in prison, really? Peter was in prison only because the Lord said he could be there, as we're going to see. So verse 6. Now, this really gets exciting, and it is so encouraging for us. You've even read similar things in your recent study in the book of Esther. For example, verse 6. The night before, Herod was to bring him to trial. Now let's stop just right there for a little bit. Where have you studied that? Where have you read about that before? The night before. Do you remember in the book of Esther when Haman had put together his plot and his policy to murder Mordecai? And he was so sure that he was going to get to do that the Bible says he built a gallows. Actually, it was a pole on which Mordecai, Haman, was going to impale. Glad the impaler was not the first impaler. The Persians had perfected that long before. And so, Mordecai, I find this so fascinating. Mordecai didn't know it, but Haman had him scheduled to die the next day. It was all set up. But that night, of all nights, what could the king not do? He couldn't sleep. You ever thought about that? The richest man in the world couldn't buy a good night's sleep. And so he got up, and what did he do? He said, bring me the Chronicles of the Kings. Someone said one time that would be the equivalent of, bring me the Encyclopedia Britannica. And I want to read it. And he began to read, and of all places that he read, where did he go to? The account of what Mordecai had done on behalf of the king and the kingdom in exposing a plot to assassinate the king. And the king said, what's been done for this man? Nothing. Nothing. And so, I won't take you all through the story, but I brought that out. What a radical reversal of events. I love this. God is capable of producing radical reversals of events in our lives. And we're looking at one today. We're about to get there. But that night of all nights before Mordecai was to be executed, again, the man didn't even know it, God deprived the king of sleep, and the rest is history, and God worked things out in a marvelous way. So, we come back to our story. Verse 6, Acts chapter 12. The night before, Herod was to bring Peter to trial. Catch this. Peter was sleeping. Can you get your mind around that? Peter was sleeping. Now, notice how the Bible stacks up intense information for us. He was sleeping between two soldiers. bound with 2 chains, and sentries stood guard at the entrance. So, what would we call Peter's situation at this point? No way out? No human way out of his situation. Between 2 soldiers, this is how they did things. Chained on one arm to one soldier, chained on the other arm to the other soldier. Guard posts outside the gate, outside the door. And so we would look at this and we would conclude, and rightly so, no human means of escape. Would you agree with that? No human way out. An impossible situation. Now, here's what we've got to open our minds to and see. It is precisely these types of situations in which God has room to work. Would you agree with that? Okay. Throughout the Bible and in life, they are those situations where we have no means of escape, where human means are at an end and we have no options. It is precisely those situations in which God is free. God is free to operate. Let me give you a biblical illustration. Daryl, I believe you've taught through Exodus before as well. In Exodus, I believe it's the end of chapter 5 and the beginning of chapter 6, that wonderful sermon, then and now. God sent Moses back to Pharaoh to lead his people out of Egypt. Now, Moses would have to get this. Moses went back, though reluctantly, but Moses was pretty sure of his own abilities and that he was still a man of force and authority. And so do you remember what he did when he went into Pharaoh? He said, "Thus saith the Lord, let my people go." And I can kind of see Moses, he's pretty proud and he's pretty confident. How did Pharaoh respond? Who's Jehovah? And who are you? Get back to work. And not only that, you go through the story, Pharaoh added to the burdens of the Israelites. He said, well, if you guys got time to be thinking about being free, then you got too much time on your hands. I'm going to make things harder for you. And so you recall Moses' response, it really ticked him off. Who was he mad at? He was mad at God. I know we say you're not supposed to be mad at God, and if you are, you're not supposed to tell him, because if he finds out, he'll get you. Well, guess what? He already knows when we're angry at him. So I think the best thing is to tell him that I got a problem. Moses was angry, and so he came back to God, and you recall, he said, Lord, since you sent me back, you've not done anything. The condition and difficulties of your people have only got to become more difficult. You've not come through. And you remember God's response to Moses. He said, now, you're going to see what I'm going to do to Pharaoh. So, what was that episode about? Moses, God had to show Moses his own powerlessness. And to get Moses out of the way, why? So God would have opportunity to work and demonstrate his power to work on behalf of his people. Daryl.
You would say that we get in God's way the majority of the time. When God wants to bless us, we stand in the way.
Everybody hear Daryl? He said, are you saying we get in God's way the majority of the time when he wants to bless us and he has to get us out of the way? Yes. We get in God's way. And often the way we get in his way is we so often like to take credit for helping God out a little bit. But see, God is interested. In fact, you go over to the book of 1 Corinthians, you'll be preaching over there later on today. God sets things up and he operates in such a way that no flesh should glory in his presence. Now, I don't know about you, but I think I probably do. You like me in that we often like to take a little bit of credit, if nothing else, for helping God out a little bit. But God is interested in men seeing what He can do on behalf of His people. And so this is part of putting Peter in the situation that he's in. Yes, there's no way out, humanly speaking. But when were human limitations ever a problem for God? They never were. So I think that we're looking at a situation, brethren, God has allowed to happen in order to demonstrate what He can do. Okay, so let's read further. Oh, this is good stuff. The night before, okay, Peter's going out of the world. He thinks the next day, and he's sleeping. Now, did he just say, well, there's nothing I can do about it, or maybe he was just trusting the Lord? Verse 7. Suddenly, loud this, suddenly, remember that rapid and radical reversal of situations that I told you God could do? Suddenly, an angel of the Lord appeared, and a light shone in the cell. He struck Peter on the side and woke him up. Quick, get up, he said. I want you to, if you write in your Bibles, I want you to underline these words. Profound, brethren. And the chains fell off Peter's wrist. Do you see that? Now, let's review the situation. He's in jail. He's between two soldiers. Chain on each arm. Guards outside. He said, well, there's no human way out. But then suddenly an angel of the Lord appears in the prison. And he woke Peter up, and what happened? And his chains fell off. Was that about Peter being smart? No. Was that about Peter being a good locksmith? Was it about him being a strong guy and he just pulled those chains apart? No. The chains fell off Peter's wrists. God took the restraints off. Let's read a little further, verse 8. Then the angel said to him, put on your clothes and sandals. And Peter did so. Wrap your cloak around you and follow me, the angel told him. Peter followed him out of the prison, but he had no idea that what the angel was doing was really happening. He thought he was seeing a vision. Now, how would we say that? Peter thought he was dreaming, and why would he think he's dreaming and it's not real? Oh, this is too good to be true, right? Oh, no, this can't be happening because it's too good to be. Do we ever think that way about our Heavenly Father? No, He won't do that. That would be too good. That's too good to be true. Listen, and I'm preaching to myself today, why do we shortchange God, brethren? Why do we so often shortchange Him? Oh, He would never do something that good for me. Why not? Why not? I always like something Russell Wilson. You guys know who Russell Wilson is? Are there no Seahawks fans in here? I'm not a Seahawks fan either. But Russell Wilson was talking one time about his success as a football player, as a professional football player. And he shared some words of his father to him that, he talking to his father, and he said, well, why me? Why me? And his father said, why not you, Buzz? And sometimes we say, well, why would God bless me so greatly? Well, why not? We're His children. Daryl, you had a...
I think it's just our depraved nature. Because Peter walked with Jesus.
He did.
And he saw all the miracles. And still, we always seem to shortchange God.
Yes.
It's that we always resort back to a failed nature.
Yes.
It feels like God has to do things over and over and over in our lives until we get so old we can't do nothing for ourselves. And then we have no choice but to trust God.
So Daryl is saying, I agree. We trust God when we have no options.
Yeah.
Or when we get too old and we can't do anything anymore. See, we men, we understand when we're young, we can pick up anything we want to pick up. If we want to move something, we'll move it somehow. We can do things. But as you get older, for crying out loud, I've been having a problem with my right foot. I don't know what's wrong with it. And not that I was ever a runner, and I'm even too fat to run now. But now it's like, I don't think I can run if I want to. There's something wrong with my foot. And so often in life, it's when our options are gone and we can't do for ourselves. Now, I don't think you sisters have as much trouble with this. Probably because mostly the ladies have to defer to the men and follow some dumb man. You got to trust God more. But we men sometimes, we struggle to come to that point where we just trust you more. And Daryl, I think you're right too. I don't think you're right, I know you're right. In most cases, God has to show us time and time again that it's not about our intelligence, it's not about our strength. It's simply about trusting Him to do things for us. And He does, and we forget. And we have to go through the lessons again. Is that a sad commentary on it? Sam, did I see your hand up?
Yeah, I gotta say it hurts. It hurts to realize that because studying this for so long, you know better. But it's hard to get that stoicism out of like you said, to be a man, when a problem comes, we automatically go to what can I do?
It's all on me.
How can I? Yeah. But you know better. You have that voice in your head saying, "No, this isn't right," but you can't know better. And it's that battle. It's fight.
And so, you ever wondered, and we'll move on, but just to give you this to think, why is it that after they left Egypt, it seemed like the children of Israel had to keep going through crisis after crisis? The circumstances may have changed, but the basic issues were the same. Would they trust God? Why did they have to keep going through these difficulties? Because they didn't learn. They didn't learn that, it doesn't matter what my circumstances are. God loves me and He's got this, and I can rest. But we struggle. And I do think that, though it's something, obviously not to be proud of, at the same time, I think it highlights God's patience and His love and His long suffering, that He does continue to work with us and try to bring us to the point where He just, hey, trust me, I've got this. Okay, so here's Peter. Now, he's followed the angel out of the prison, but he thinks he's dreaming because, no, this is too good to be true. But it actually was happening. So, verse 10. Hey, this is Peter and the angel. They passed the first and second guards. Now, these were guard posts outside of the cell. However it happened, whether God put the guards to sleep or whether He made Peter invisible, we don't know. But they passed by. And they came to the iron gate leading to the city. Uh-oh. Yeah, the chains have fallen off, and the angel has taken me out of the cell. And we've got past some of the guards, but here it is. It's over now. Because here's the gate, here's the iron gate leading into the city. What happened? The Bible says it opened for them by itself. Can you get your mind around this? It opened. Interestingly, the word automatically, we get our word automatic from the word that's used here. The gate opened for them by itself. Now, as it appeared to Peter, yeah, but I wonder who opened it. I wonder if there was an invisible hand that just opened that gate right up. It opened for them by itself, and they went through it. When they had walked the length of one street, suddenly the angel left them. Now, let's pause here. Chains and gates. And you understand now why I call this chapter Chains and Gates. Here was Peter, arrested. Herod was going to kill him, put in jail in impossible circumstances, humanly speaking. Right? How about linking this to our binding circumstances and our difficult situations in life? That there seemed to be no way of escape. And it may be, humanly speaking, there is no way of escape. And let's face it, sometimes God puts us in those situations. And He will keep us in those situations for a while. It may be that He will keep certain restraints upon us for the rest of our lives. I like my freedom. And I like to be able to make my own choices about what I'm going to do and when I'm going to do it. Don't you? But sometimes our choices get taken away. Our opportunity, I suppose that we can still do dumb things, but have you ever experienced in life it is like God has put a chain on you and He's put gates in front of you, and you're restrained, you're restricted, and it can get very frustrating, can't it? Okay, now, some questions that we have to deal with and we have to answer definitively. Will God sometimes put us in similar situations that I'm restrained, I'm restricted, it's like I got chains on, gates are in front of me, and I can't escape? Sure He will. We find it throughout the Bible. God knows. God cares. Now, the question for us is, does God have any problem lifting the restraints, changing the circumstances, opening the gates, making the chains just bang? They're gone. He has no problem with it. So, then we must conclude that when He allows these things, and He keeps us in a certain situation, He's doing it for a purpose, isn't He? And His purpose, as far as He's concerned about us, is for our profit, for our good. And what I want us to get today, this is what I love. When God has accomplished His purpose with the chains and with the gates, what happens? The chains fall off and the gates open. And we have freedom. When we have learned what He wants us to learn, when His purpose is accomplished in our lives. I love this story. I love this story, brethren. Okay, so let's continue on. Doesn't end here. I'll have to be quick because I'm running out of time. All right, verse 11. Then Peter came to himself and said, "Now I know without a doubt that the Lord sent His angel and rescued me from Herod's clutches and from everything the Jewish people were anticipating." All right, I got it now. When this had dawned on him, he went to the house of Mary, the mother of John, also called Mark, where many people had gathered and were praying. They were scared to death. "Oh, Lord, let Peter go. Oh, Lord, let Peter go. Because I'm afraid they get Peter, they'll get me next." Verse 13. Peter knocked at the outer entrance, and a servant girl named Rhoda came to answer the door. When she recognized Peter's voice, she was so overjoyed she ran back without opening it and exclaimed, "Peter's at the door." Now, what had they been praying for? Lord, let Peter go. Lord, let Peter go. And how did they respond when she said, Peter's at the door? Verse 15, you're out of your mind. They told her. When she kept insisting that it was so, they said, it must be his angel. In other words, they already killed him. And this is his spirit. They got him. They got him already. Now, wait a minute. What about praying in faith? Had they been really believing God was going to do what they were praying? I don't think so. Too good to be true, right? Too good to be true. No, that can't be Peter. They killed him and his spirit has come. So verse 16. But Peter kept on knocking, and when they opened the door and saw him, they were astonished. Oh! Peter motioned with his hand for them to be quiet and underlined these words and described how the Lord had brought him out of the prison. You see that? What's he doing here? Let me tell you what God has done for me. So think about this. If what had happened to Peter had never happened, he wouldn't have a story to tell, would he? Let me tell you. I think there's a song. Stop and let me tell you what the Lord has done for me. Guys, you're not going to believe this story Peter must have said, but I'm telling you, God did something amazing for me, and I want to share it with you. And I want you to be encouraged. Now, think about this. These were people who were afraid. But can you see how what God did with Peter would help them with their fears? Well, we've really got nothing to worry about. We've been stressed and worried that Herod's going to get us, but we really have nothing to worry about. Let me tell you what the Lord has done for me. So he says, tell James, now this was not the Apostle James, he's dead already, right? But James, the pastor of the church, the half-brother of the Lord. Tell James and the brothers about this, he said, and then he left for another place. Some experiences in life we go through, there's always something for us to learn, but also God will put us in situations that he can take us through and take us out of so that we can tell others of his children. Let me tell you what God has done for me and how he has taken care of me and how he got me out of impossible circumstances. Brethren, let me just say, when God does something like this for you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with your family. Share it with your children. Share it with your friends. Share it with your co-workers. Man, I was in great difficulties, but my God took me through and he delivered me. This is what Peter's doing. Guys, what God has done for me. But this leaves us with a question. What about James? What about the Apostle James? What happened to him? Herod killed me. Do you think Herod got that one by the Lord? The Lord said, oh, shucks. Herod got James. I wasn't paying attention, and he just got James. And well, I'll make sure he doesn't get Peter, but man, I'm sorry about James. No. James' work was done. And God said, son, I'm going to bring you home with honors. And look, he got to go to heaven a long time before Peter did.
His chains fell off too.
What's that?
His chains fell off too.
Darrell says James' chains fell off too. You better believe they fell off. And he was set free. So let's be sure we understand. James' death was not the result of God not paying attention, not knowing what was going on. And I think that the remainder of the chapter is going to demonstrate that for us. So, verse 18. Now, I like to call this the postscript, or as Paul Harvey used to say, the rest of the story. So we'll read the rest of the story and then we'll ask, what's the moral of the rest of the story? In the morning, There was no small commotion among the soldiers as to what had become of Peter. I guess, what in the world happened to Peter? After Herod had a thorough search made for him and did not find him, he cross-examined the guards, that means he tortured them, and ordered that they be executed. Then Herod went from Judea to Caesarea and stayed there a while. Now, obviously, he got out of town because he was embarrassed. The Lord changed his plan. Verse 20. He, Herod, had been quarreling with the people of Tyre and Sidon. They now joined together and sought an audience with him. Having secured the support of Blastus, a trusted personal servant of the king, they asked for peace because they depended on the king's country for their food supply. Now obviously, there's some political stuff going on and some sweet talking. Oh, Herod, you're such a great guy. You're so smart. Verse 21, on the appointed day, Herod, wearing his royal robes, sat on his throne and delivered a public address to the people. Can you see it in your mind? Friends and countrymen, esteemed colleagues. The Jewish historian Josephus, he had something to write about this event. He said that this meeting took place in a Colosseum type building, and that Herod walked out of the tunnel and he walked into the bright sunlight, and his robe was made of hundreds of pieces of polished metal squares that were all sewn together. And when Herod walked out into the sunlight and the sun hit all of those polished squares, it was just brilliant and dazzling. And the people said, "Whoa!" And they shouted, verse 22, "This is the voice of a God, not of a man." And I can kind of picture Herod in my mind. Oh, yes, yes. Say it some more, come on. Immediately, verse 23. Because Herod did not give praise to God. Watch this now, hang with me. Immediately, because Herod did not give praise to God, an angel of the Lord struck him down. And he was eaten by worms. Ooh. And died. That's kind of a rough way to go, isn't it? Into the road for Herod. But, verse 24, the word of God continued to increase and spread. You see that? We conclude the chapter when Barnabas and Saul had finished their mission. By the way, they probably were present for this. They returned from Jerusalem, taking with them John, also called Mark. The rest of the story. What would you say as we look at Herod coming to his end? What would you say is the moral or the lesson of the rest of the story? What's that? Daryl says God is in control. I agree totally with that, don't you? Or could we say Herod was never calling the shots in any of this? Oh, he thought he was. He thought, I'll do what I want to do when I want to do it. Herod was never calling the shots. Jesus was calling the shots. The whole time. Now, transfer it to today. Who's calling the shots in the world today? And ultimately, now, make no mistake, God gives us the privilege of making decisions in our lives. But ultimately, who is it that calls the shots and is in control? It's God, our Savior, Jesus Christ. Herod was never in control. He was never calling the shots. It was always God. And so, concluding the story, would it be correct to say Herod only continued and only went so far as God allowed him to go? And then when when Herod came to that point where his work was done, it was done. And God said, that's it. That's as far as you're going to go, Herod. Now, that should bring us great comfort in the world, in our lives, in the world we live in today. In fact, this evening we can transfer it over to the book of the Revelation. I find it interesting, and we finished seminary last week looking at the last year. We're spending some time looking at the Revelation. The Antichrist, that guy, he scares us all, you know. He was given power to continue. Now you read this in the Revelation, 42 months or 3.5 years. In other words, the duration of his time and power is predetermined and it is limited. 3.5 years and no more. Well, I wonder who is it that determines and limits his authority and his power? It is the Lord Jesus Christ. It is our Lord and our King. So, chains and gates. Yeah, God will allow us to have restrictions. And He will put chains on us. He will put gates in front of us. Always for a purpose, always for our good. And when He accomplishes His purpose, it takes long. And it's not about us being smart. It's not about us being strong. It's not about our skill. Trusting God. Which means what? Often we have to do that thing that is so hard. Wait. I struggle sometimes to wait on God. Don't you? I struggle. And I want to make things happen. Sometimes you can't do much about making things happen. Sometimes in the past I have made things happen and they weren't good things. And I said, oh Lord. Waiting on God. But we're never in a difficulty, we're never in a situation that God can't get us out of. Immediately. But many times He's not so much interested in getting us directly out of as taking us through. It's His presence. Do you have any questions comments on this lesson? I love this chapter of the Bible. I love it.
Same thing throughout the whole Bible. It's God's blessings that we need to learn to take us through this journey in life. And it would be so much easier if we learn to trust Him. But then again, as long as we have youth and that energy, and we resort to our humanism, humanly, we'll make the decision. We'll decide this is where we want to go. And our prayers are normally, God, come along with me, instead of I should come along with you, as David would say, the Lord is my shepherd.
My shepherd.
You know, and then and only then I will not be in want.
Will I follow Him?
Same story.
Same story. And Darrell mentions the 23rd Psalm, the Lord is my shepherd. Have you discovered that we make poor shepherds? I make a poor shepherd. It's best to let the Lord lead in our life. Anyone else? If not, yes, Victoria, do you have a hand up?
I just wanted to say that I really enjoyed the lesson. It was very enlightening, changes and gates. And one thing I will remember, and I hope I'm going down right and telling you that correctly from God is able to bring radical, reversible events in our life. But He's in control. We know that if we're in a situation long enough, we're saying, God, where are you? Because we all do that.
Yes.
We all have a conflict waiting, and we think we have overcome that. God allows a situation to come in and let us know we're not there yet. We're not there yet. I really enjoyed that. That's like, I'm going to remember that. I'm going to put that down and put in my big notes. God is able to prevent radical, reversible events in our life.
Yes. And it is, I call it a radical, I can't remember what I said now. But it is It is a radical reversal of roles. He can, in other words, God can turn things around quickly and radically. Just like that. A radical reversal of roles.
You know, I remember we first got married. We had an apartment on the second floor, and we needed a freezer. And when we got married, I was like 135 pounds. You know, and I went out and bought us one of those freezers, big freezers that we could. And I put it in the back of my car, and I took it up 2 flights of stairs. I can't even hear a broom up 2 flights of stairs now, and I'm 200 pounds now. But you know, when I delivered the freezer at the door, she was like, "How did you do that?" I was like, "Yeah, it's nothing." You know, and now everything is a challenge for me. You know, so yeah, God will change these. He'll change these your roles in your life to let you know that it's not by your strength, by the power of the Lord. It's always by. Now I operate all the time. Lord, help me through this, help me through that. But I just on my own did everything.
Yes. Yes. And that's why we have bad backs and bad feet, I suppose.
Our days go now.
But I like in Zechariah, in the book of Zechariah, God talked about this. He said, "Not by your bow and not by your strength, but by my spirit, saith the Lord, I accomplish things." Good story. And the Bible is full of it. We'll look at another one in just a little bit. Thank you all for your attention. And it just came to me, Victoria, a word I left out. Rapid. A rapid and radical reversal of roles. A whole lot of R's in there, aren't there? A rapid and radical reversal of roles that God can accomplish when He's accomplished His purpose with whatever our restricted circumstances are. And we have a tendency to say, "Oh no, this must be something wrong. This is too good." No, God says, "Here, I love you, I want to give you things, but you're ready for it now." Thank you all for your attention.
Great. Appreciate it.
Thank you.